Brad Keithley, Managing Director of Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Welcome to the weekly Top 3, the top 3 things on our mind here at Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets for the week of June 22nd, 2026. The weekly Top 3 is a regular segment on The Michael Dukes Show. The show broadcasts on both Facebook Live and YouTube Live, as well as via streaming audio from the show's website, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. I join Michael weekly in the first hour of Tuesday's show from 6:10 to 7 a.m. for a discussion between the two of us about our 3 issues. We post the podcasts of our discussion following the show on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Substack pages, also on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets website, as well as the project's page on national blog site, medium.com. You can find past episodes of the weekly Top 3 also at the same locations. Keep in mind that in addition to these podcasts, during the week, you can also follow and participate in the discussion with us of these and other issues affecting Alaska's fiscal and economic condition by following us on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook page and through our posts on Twitter. This week, our top 3 issues are these. First, we explain why, by following a one-way fiscal policy that favors spending over revenues, Governor Dunleavy is making the state's already bad fiscal situation even worse. Second, we explain why we believe the Senate was right in proposing to fix Alaska's Subchapter S oil and gas loophole, and what we will be looking for the conference committee to consider as it attempts to resolve the differences between the House and Senate. And third, we explain why we believe former Governor Walker's proposal to terminate the PFD is equivalent to Texas or Louisiana confiscating the royalties owed to private mineral interest owners in those states. And now, let's join Michael.
I want to get started here, and we're going to get started with number 1, which is Dunleavy's, what you're calling Dunleavy's one-sided fiscal policy. So walk me through where you're at on this and what your thoughts are here this morning.
Michael, I think every segment I do from now on, I need to start with this statement. The state of Alaska is facing $1.9 billion in annual deficits over the next 10 years, and maybe growing beyond that. $1.9 billion in annual deficits. That's sort of the ground floor to everything that at least I am thinking, and everything I'm talking about. That's the starting point. $1.9 billion. So with that starting point, I look at what the governor did in his veto messages and in what he allowed to go into effect after the end of the regular session, and in the stuff that occurred on, I guess, what was it? It was Thursday afternoon before the Friday session. In the stuff that went on then, he vetoed some things and allowed some things to go into effect. One of the things he allowed to go into effect was the education minibus bill that had been put together in both the House and the Senate. It was sort of, they took a bunch of things that had passed the House and they brought them all together in the Senate. The education minibus bill. And that bill increases education spending. Doesn't increase it as much as the BSA increase last year, but it increases ongoing education spending, at least in a couple of areas. One is with respect to transportation funding. They allowed us a provision that increases the amount for transportation funding within the K through 12 transportation funding, increases state contributions toward transportation funding as gasoline and other energy costs increase. The state's taken on that burden. It's no longer going to be a responsibility of the localities. The state's taken on that burden. And another thing that got rolled into that bill was a cap on property taxes, a cap on the increase in property taxes among the boroughs. And that's fine. But what that translates into is increased state funding, because the way the formula works You set the BSA, or you set whatever the education funding level is. You deduct from that various things, including the property tax contribution made by the localities, and then the state picks up the rest. So if you cap what the localities are contributing, if you cap the property tax calculation that the localities are contributing, the state share increases. So he allowed that bill to go into, he didn't sign it, but he allowed that bill to go into effect, that increases state spending. Then he turns around and he vetoes two bills that would have increased revenues. One was the corporate income tax law update, which is sort of bizarre because that passed the legislature last year. And then he vetoed it. The legislature tried to override it, got close, didn't. But part of the reason they didn't veto it is the governor said, well, I'll come back with a fix in this session. He came back with a fix as part of the fiscal plan. The corporate tax law update is part of the fiscal plan. And then, and it passes. Not the whole fiscal plan passes because it was part of the fiscal plan that includes sales taxes. But it was in his fiscal plan that passes, and then he vetoes it again. So that was one thing, and the other thing was this e-cigarette tax that you and I have gone round and round on before, but that gets vetoed also. Both of the explanations for those is that Alaska needs, quote, a comprehensive fiscal plan, not one-off tax measures. Well, yeah, but a fiscal plan includes both spending and revenues. And again, let's start with a statement: $1.9 billion in annual deficits. That's what the state's facing. In that context, he allows increased spending to go into effect, but not increased revenues. And so he adds to the problem by allowing the education minibus bill to go into effect, increasing long-term spending, increasing that $1.9 billion deficit by some amount, probably not a huge amount, but by some amount. I mean, relatively $1.9 billion is big enough on its own, but increases that. And at the same time, vetoes the revenue measures. I get that we need a comprehensive fiscal plan. Believe me, I think I've talked about it as much as anybody,
right,
about the need for a comprehensive fiscal plan. But a comprehensive fiscal plan includes both the spending side and the revenue side. And I just don't get allowing spending increases to go into effect at the same time as you're vetoing revenue measures. If you want to shut things down until you get a comprehensive fiscal plan, shut down both the spending side and the revenue side until you get a comprehensive fiscal plan. Don't let, particularly given that we have what's the magic number, $1.9 billion in deficits annual deficits that we're facing, particularly given that we're facing that amount of deficits. Don't let the spending side go into effect, and not let at least some offsetting revenues go into effect. It's just I don't understand what he's doing. I mean, now some are going to probably some are already typing it. Oh, but the legislature would have overridden the veto. Fine, let the legislature make that mistake. But
right.
Don't get out in front of it and make the mistake yourself,
right,
of allowing that to go into effect before you have a comprehensive fiscal plan, and don't make the mistake of letting that go into effect without allowing the offsetting revenues to go into effect.
I was wondering when I saw this, as I watched this happen, I thought, first of all, I was a little shocked that he let the school funding, especially because it was going after the heating and the energy and the electric usage, where we're going to all of a sudden the state's going to be on the hook for all these energy costs for all these school districts. And I thought, I was really shocked that he just let it through without a veto, and then, like you said, pass it over to the legislature to override if they want to. But at the same time, I was thinking, I wonder if he's trying to buy goodwill on the gas line, but again, buying goodwill from the legislature at this point is just it's a no-win. Why, Mike? Why would you want to do that? Because they have no goodwill towards the governor. They have their own agenda here. I don't understand why he allowed that to go through anyway, because we did the math on that. That's a significant amount of money. We're talking about increases of $400 million a year potentially when you start calculating all the energy and things that they would have to pay for all the districts around the state. That's a significant amount of money that you're adding to that bottom line. Like you said, starting out 1.5, 1.6, $1.9 billion, and now you're going to add to it. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's and the incentives get screwed up, Michael. I mean, so the local districts, this is the problem I have with our low local contribution level in any event. The local districts make the decisions about how many buses they have, about what energy source and how much they pay for the energy source. Now, yes, there is this market energy sources, but how much they invest in conservation? They have the local districts have that decision-making authority. And now all of a sudden we've said, you don't have to worry about the costs of making the decision that you're going to continue to use the energy sources that the state's going to pay for, the higher cost energy sources the state's going to pay for, because the state's going to pick that up. It's the same thing we do on maintenance. Major routine maintenance at the districts is handled comes out of their budget. Major maintenance comes out of the state's budget. And so what the districts do is they let things deteriorate. I mean, it's the financial incentives are there to do it this way. They let things deteriorate to the point where it becomes major maintenance, and all of a sudden it's the state's hook. Now, state doesn't always step up, and you got big problems. But they don't have an incentive to really worry a lot about routine maintenance. I mean, they do some of it, but they don't have the incentive to worry a lot about routine maintenance. If by letting it go, it can go into major maintenance and let the state pick it up. We say we have local authority. We say we have, we give local authority over the school districts, but they don't have local fiscal responsibility. A lot of that gets shifted to the state. And so they make decisions that are incentivized to push the cost to the state level. There's a huge package around, or there's a huge things that need to be addressed in terms of a comprehensive fiscal plan. But this one-sided approach of letting some of the spending things go into effect with higher spending levels while you keep saying, well, we can't have any revenues because we don't have a comprehensive fiscal plan yet. It's just not, we're not going to get to a solution that way.
Barbara says, no, routine major maintenance comes out of the borough's budget. It's only on the state if you are outside of borough. But he's talking about all the asks that they come back to the state for the major deferred maintenance. I mean, that's the problem, is that they defer it long enough that all of a sudden it becomes a crisis, and then they have to have the state try and bail them out, which is, I mean, that happens. That happens quite frequently, where they want the state to come in and be part of it. That's and that's quite honestly, that's something that's happening around the state in many areas. It's not just the school districts, but they always leave it until it becomes a major maintenance project, so then they can take it out of a different bucket of money.
Yep. And we had, I mean, I'm not quite sure what Barbara's talking about, because we had a lot of maintenance maintenance spending requests come from the school districts to the legislature this session. We have a list of maintenance that the state maintains for to do for the localities. So there is some maintenance. I'm not sure if we're having a definitional debate here, but there is a lot of school maintenance that goes to the state.
Yeah, and like I said, I was a little shocked that he allowed this to go through, especially after the last go around with the BSA and everything else. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm trying to figure out why. Why would you do this? I mean, it can't be to try and garner goodwill. They already hate you. I mean, it's not like you're going to get some friendly accolades for passing their bill. It doesn't make any sense as far as that goes.
I mean, a governor would say, look, you want to spend, we need revenue to cover the spending. We need a comprehensive fiscal plan. I'm not going to approve revenue, which he certainly said he wasn't going to do. And I'm not going to approve increased spending until we have a comprehensive fiscal plan. They're both part of the problem. We need to address both of those as part of the problem. That would make sense as a veto message, and I think it would collect a significant amount of support as a veto message. But saying, oh, we need a comprehensive fiscal plan, but hey, this spending can go ahead and add to the problem. But we can't have any incremental revenue. I mean, we can have incremental spending increases, but we can't have any incremental revenue, particularly, something like the corporate tax that he already agreed should be part of a plan.
Right.
It just makes no sense. I mean, it just keeps digging the hole deeper without sort of any hope of backfilling at least some of the revenue into the hole.
We only have a minute and a half left. I don't know if you have enough time for this one. How about a fiscal plan that uses cuts to balance the budget?
Yeah, 2019. We lived through that. I don't know if TR was around then, but we lived through that.
Yeah, Terry was here. I mean, that's the thing. We've tried the cuts only approach. There's just no will to do it. I mean, nobody wants to cut the government that much. Not even the Republicans in the House. They wouldn't even back the governor up on those cuts. And that wasn't even that was only an 8% cut. 8% across the board. Draconian. Dogs and cats raining from the sky. I mean, yeah.
And yes, and so we talk about that every year. Oh my God, we got to do it through cuts only. Well, what happens is spending keeps going up, and we don't have any offsetting revenue, so the deficit keeps getting bigger. I mean, that argument of cuts only has become a way in which the hole has become deeper and deeper and deeper, because we don't apply it to spending increases. We allow the spending increases to go forward.
Right. No, it's crazy stuff. Number 2 of the weekly top 3. Oh, they just get better from here. Why Brad supports the Subchapter S amendment. This is from the Friday edition of the Senate meeting as they were getting things in. They threw the Subchapter S amendment in. Now, Brad and I are going to disagree on this, because while I support the idea of creating a Subchapter S change, the idea of throwing it in as a poison pill on the gas line bill, I think it needs much further discussion. And I like it. I mean, again, I like the idea, but throwing it on this is going to create some problems. But we'll let Brad knows how I feel about that. We'll let Brad sort that out on the other side. Go ahead, sir.
All right, we're going to start this segment the same way we started the last segment. We are facing a $1.9 billion deficit. Actually, it's 2 now. When you take the FY27 spending that the legislature approved, governor hasn't approved it yet, but you take the FY27 spending the legislature approved, and you just increase it across the board for inflation, across the 10-year horizon for inflation, and then you look at the revenues that are in the revenue forecast, the deficit's now over $2 billion. The average deficit over the 10-year period is over $2 billion. We're facing huge annual deficits in this state. And so that's as I say, that's the starting point. Should be the starting point of every segment I do. Certainly is the starting point of how I look at any issue. What Glenn Farn came to the state and said was, look, we need help with respect to the property tax issue. And the property tax, and they said they needed help on the property tax issue for a couple of reasons. One was, it is the way the Alaska property tax work. It's an upfront cost, and that upfront cost makes this project uneconomic. It's a huge hill to get over at the front. We need it, spaced out over time, and we need it tied. The proposal was to tie it volumetrically, to tie it to actual throughput. The other problem was with respect to the property tax was the level needed to be changed, and so that got changed as part of addressing the upfront cost. So there was a third issue, and the third issue was property tax in Alaska, especially pipeline property tax, is always subject to litigation, and so we need a mechanism. Unlike what goes on in TAPS, we need a mechanism that isn't subject to litigation, and so the fixed volumetric addresses that. So the resolution in the tax bill that was before the Senate was fixed the property tax issue as it came out of the House. The Senate made some further adjustments to it, as is the Senate's right to do. But fix the property tax issue. But the Senate said, "Wait, we got another issue that we need to get resolved at the same time, and that is the Subchapter S issue." It's not. I don't think that's illegitimate. We're in the midst of giving tax relief on this project to address issues that the project had raised. We're in the midst of giving tax relief. The Senate says, in that context, we want to address another tax issue that helps offset the relief that we're giving you on the property tax that you asked for, and we want to address the Subchapter S issue, and so I think that's a legitimate issue to raise in that context, in a tax context where we're reducing revenues on the left hand. The question is whether there's some way that we can adjust revenues on the right hand to make the ultimate result more palatable. I think it's a legitimate issue to raise. And frankly, it's not clear what Glenfarne's problem with the Subchapter S tax fix is. None of the LNG projects in Texas and Oklahoma use Subchapter S. None of them have used the Subchapter S exemption, because the Subchapter S exemption is relatively tight. You can't have corporate partners in the Subchapter S. You can't even have LLCs. Partners in the Subchapter S. You have to limit the number of participants, of owners of the Subchapter S project. You can't have any foreign ownership of the Subchapter S. And so it's not none of the ones in Texas and Louisiana, none of the LNG projects in Texas and Louisiana use it. I'm not entirely clear what Glenfarne's problem with Subchapter S is. Even if you assume for the moment that they do have, that they would be subject to the Subchapter S fix that the Senate's got. It's both in Texas and Louisiana. Even if you're Subchapter S, you still pay state corporate income taxes. You do it different ways. In Texas, you pay the business franchise tax. It does not. The Texas business franchise tax, which is their version of a corporate income tax, does not exclude Subchapter S corporations. They pay the business franchise tax the same way the Subchapter C corporations pay. In Louisiana, they do have the Subchapter S exclusion at the corporate level. But what happens at both the federal level and the state level with Subchapter S is you don't get taxed at the corporate level. The income falls to the individual owners of the Subchapter S corporation, and then they pay at the federal level. They pay federal income tax. That's what
right.
At the personal level. That's what happens there. Louisiana has a state income tax, a personal state income tax. So in Louisiana, the same thing happens when they have the Subchapter S exclusion at the corporate level, but the income falls to the personal level, and then they capture the income at the personal level. We're more like Texas. Texas doesn't have, Alaska is more like Texas. Texas doesn't have a personal income tax. And so they tax it at the corporate level through the business franchise tax. So when, a lot of people have walked around during this entire process and said, oh, we need to be competitive with Louisiana and Texas. We need to do like they do on the property tax. And both those states have property tax abatements. But okay, so if we need to be like Louisiana and Texas, let's be like Louisiana and Texas. Let's do the tax of the corporate income at the either like Texas at the corporate income level, or like Louisiana at the personal income level. All of this, what we need to be focused on in this state is tax fairness. We have a $1.9 billion deficit, annual deficits that we're facing. If the corporations don't pay it, if the corporations don't contribute to it, it's just going to be more out of the pocket of middle and lower income Alaska families through PFD cuts. Somebody's going to pay that. It's not going to disappear. It's not going to be absorbed by something else. Production tax revenues. Oh, we're going to increase production. Production tax revenues are going down. We've talked about that on previous programs. Somebody's paying this deficit. And for the Senate and for people to look at a potential subchapter S fix to have contributions come from corporations also, like they do in Louisiana, like they do in Texas. If that's where we want to draw the line, like they do in Louisiana and Texas. If somebody wants to look at doing a subchapter S fix, I think it's a valid thing to do.
Do you think that, and I guess for me, it was more, I don't have a problem going after, looking at it, talking about it, finding a way. I agree with the tax fairness issue, but do you think that this was the place to do it? I guess is my major question, because again, there could be a question on subject rule. I mean, I'm just asking here because this is, of all the places it's been discussed, but it hasn't ever been sussed out. They haven't done fiscal plan. They haven't had public input. What do you think about,
we've had conversations about subchapter S for the last, 5 sessions around, maybe even longer than that because of the Hillcorp situation. I mean, the Hillcorp exclusion is a subchapter S exclusion. I don't think it's invalid to add it to this bill. I think it's something that deserves a look, and the conference committee can certainly give a look at it. I think the Senate was looking at a situation where we have a $1.9 billion deficit, and a request to reduce the level of property tax that the project would otherwise pay. And I think it's a valid thing to raise as a subchapter S. This may be more. Anyway, I think it's a valid issue to raise.
Charlie asked the question, do you see a problem of unintended consequences on small businesses going after the mean old oil corporations organized as S corps?
No, because we have in this state, we have a separate petroleum corporate income tax. And this fix, if I understand it correctly, this fix is to the petroleum corporate income tax. I mean, we don't have the same, the mom and pop corporations in the state, even the C corps don't pay on the same basis as the oil companies do, through the petroleum corporate income tax. So I don't see this as, just like the existing petroleum corporate income tax doesn't affect the mom and pop C corporations, I don't see this fix affecting the mom and pop subchapter S corporations.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3. Brad's thoughts on the S corp. He's okay with it being included in this bill. Again, I see the argument, but I'm wondering if it, and I too wonder why Glenfarne, if it's not going to affect it, as you point out, I don't know necessarily as why, other than obviously it's going to affect some of the players involved in this in the long run. But do you think it will, I guess one final question, do you think, because one of the arguments was, well, this will affect potential investment, because some of these people might organize as a C corp or an LLC who are investors. Do you see that as being a truism, that it might affect the investment in that regard? I think
the Senate, I think now the conference committee needs to sort out what effect the subchapter S corporation, layering on the subchapter S corporation, has on this project, has on the viability of this project. I, like virtually every other person in the state, want to see this project go. And we want to see the benefits of the project, particularly on the upstream of being able to monetize the gas, in particular the effect on revenues in terms of monetizing the gas. But we need to see the project go at a tax structure that fairly treats, in the face of a $1.9 billion deficit, that fairly treats fairly treats Alaska. So I think it's up to the conference committee to sort through and figure out what the Subchapter S, how the Subchapter S affects the economics. If legitimately, not just arm waving, oh my God, we can't do this, but legitimately there is an effect on the project. Not just they earn less profit, but it makes it to the point where the project doesn't go. If it legitimately does that, then there needs to be some modifications to the Subchapter S, or there needs to be some additional modifications to make the project go. But just throwing out the Subchapter S by not doing the Subchapter S because we say, oh my gosh, we can't do that. It's just that doesn't sit with me, particularly when you look at Louisiana and Texas. I mean, people want us to look at Louisiana and Texas. That was part of the rationalization for the property tax reform. Well, I look at Louisiana and Texas; they do tax abatements. Well, okay. Particularly when you look at Louisiana and Texas, and you say all those projects down there, none of them are using none of the major ones are using Subchapter S. I haven't studied the minor ones, which is why I said major. None of the major ones use Subchapter S. And they have, even for those Subchapter S corporations, they have ways of still capturing revenue to the state. Particularly when you look at Louisiana and Texas, I'm not sure that just arm waving and saying Subchapter S shouldn't be applied here is the right way to go.
Okay, we're in the break. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets.
But Michael, I want to add one other thing that sort of ties the first segment and the second segment together.
Okay.
When you got a governor who says, I know we're deep in debt, and we're making it worse by increasing spending, and I'm gonna let that go into effect. When you've got an administration that's doing that, and so if you try to do the Subchapter S fix separately, you're just going to get it bounced back in your face with under the same theory that he bounced back the corporate income tax and the e-tax. That we're not going to do revenue until we have a comprehensive fiscal. We're going to keep letting spending going, but we're not going to do revenue until we have a comprehensive fiscal plan. When you got a governor that's doing that, I mean, at a practical level, I think there's another reason that creates another reason why it's legitimate for the Senate to put the Subchapter S fix on this bill, because you finally found a bill the governor's going to have to deal with.
Right. To tie it to something that he's going to have to sign versus something that he would potentially as a standalone. And I could see that argument for sure because he has bounced back a lot of things. And I always I've kind of shaken my head at some point because they're letting good be the enemy of great. We've got a good bill, but not a great bill. It's not perfect, right? We don't have the perfect comprehensive plan. And if that's the argument, then we'll never have the perfect comprehensive plan because they'll just keep throwing bits and pieces at it. And if the spending keeps going up, then everybody's happy, right? Except for of course, the Alaskan taxpayer or the Alaskan resident who's losing their PFD through their taxes. I mean, that's, but you're right. That is one thing that every time you turn around and says, I'm going to cut this because it's not a comprehensive fiscal plan. But if it's a step in the right direction, why aren't we at least taking baby steps in the right direction?
Particularly at the same time as you're approving spending increases.
Yeah.
I mean, if he were saying no more spending increases, period, and I'm going to slash the budget down, and it's all going to be part of a comprehensive fiscal plan. We're going to have a big come to Jesus meeting about a comprehensive fiscal plan. No more spending, no revenues until we have the whole plan. If you were saying that, okay. But particularly at a time when he's saying, okay, spending, yeah, go ahead.
Right. Well, think about it. If it had been, less COVID, think about it. If in 2018, 2019, after he got spanked on the thing, if he had come back every year after that and basically just vetoed any additional spending and said, I'm not going to have anything until you have a comprehensive plan. And anytime you put a spending bill on my desk that increases spending, I'm going to veto it. And you could override it, but I'm just going to veto it. And we're going to be in this veto override cycle until you guys put forward a comprehensive spending plan. And it just never happened. That's the problem. It just never happened. Hot Spring Shot Arc Flash. Wow, that's a name. Looking at your pricing charts on LinkedIn for LNG import costs, does your import price include building the import facility? During testimony, I think it was agreed import gas would be in the mid-20s. And I haven't seen the chart, Brad, so I can't comment on it. But
we talked about them last week. We talked about it last week on the show. And the answer is yes. If you look at the Monday, every time I publish the chart, I put a link to a column where I explained all of the ingredients that go into the chart. If you look at that column, you'll see that I added $5 an MCF, which is the mid-range. NSTAR said, yeah.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good, Michael. Hey, you can pull things up from back. NSTAR said that you can that the import costs will be between $4 and $6. And so I added $5 on top of the LNG import price to account for those facilities. The mid-20s, sometimes I really dislike people. The mid-20s that they talk about for the import price comes out of the LNG price during the Iran war high. So you pick, you say we got $16 or something for LNG prices, and you add $5 onto that, or you say the LNG price is $17 or $18, which is what it got to for winter months during the Iran war, and you add $5 on that, you're in the mid-20s. But as oil's coming down, so is LNG coming down. And the right. Charts I'm doing are reflecting the futures price out, both for oil and LNG.
Less the Iranian problem, the Iranian bubble at that point, right?
Yep.
So that makes sense. Final thoughts on this, Brad, because this, you're right, and we talked about this, and we're in this bubble because of the Iranian situation, and yet when it all comes down to it, that the whole thing's going to go away, and we'll be right back where we started, only worse. Because this is how it happens every time there's some kind of big plus up or a bubble of some kind that comes up, and happy days are here again, and then we're worse off when the bubble pops than we were to begin with. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go? We go bad places. I mean, because the 1.9 billion grows bigger. If 1.9 billion is predicated on oil prices stabilizing somewhere in the 70s, and if the oil prices continue to decline, I do a chart every day that I publish on Twitter and Facebook and all sorts of places every day of oil and gas prices, and I was shocked at the level that oil prices have fallen just from yesterday. I mean, during the height of the Iran war, using the futures prices were saying that state revenues were going to be in excess of $1 billion over the FY27, the fall FY27 revenue forecast, over $1 billion higher. When I did it this morning, we're down to in the 300s someplace, and the trend line's going like this.
Yeah, I mean, what WTI was 74 yesterday, 75.
Yeah, and when I did the futures, I spend more time on the futures market than I do on the current market. But the futures market for WTI that I did this morning, 5 years out, is below 60. Now Brent isn't below 60 yet, but Brent's certainly in the 60s,
right?
5 years out. So when we talk about, we. Don't worry about Subchapter S. Don't worry about that fix. Just keep on going on. When you look at the oil prices and you look at what that does to the state revenues, you worry about it a lot, and you worry about that $1.9 billion a lot.
Right.
So
yeah, no, I mean that's the thing that I think that nobody's talking about. I try to bring it up with every candidate that I can. That $1 billion hole, that whatever $1 billion hole. Now 1.9, and they just kind of look at you blankly. It's kind of, I mean, even Adam Crum, the commissioner of revenue, when I had Adam on the program, I don't know if you watched that show, but I had Adam on the program, and just kind of crickets, when I brought it up. I mean, you're the one putting this together for the governor, and you have no comment on this $1 billion hole that's moving forward for years and years and years. Oh, well, we just need to generate more resource revenue.
Well, the only way we're going to generate more resource revenue is, given the way that SB 21 has turned out 10 years after the fact, the only way we're going to generate more resource revenue is to fix SB 21, because the more production we do, the more investment that goes on out there, the lower the production tax revenues are. So yeah. We've got a lot of fixes to do. We got a $1.9 billion hole. We got a lot of fixes to do. and people who just want to dismiss fixes. Well, the governor's approving increased spending. People who just want to dismiss fixes are part of the problem. They're not part of the solution.
Yeah, no, as the money goes up, you can't cut your way out if your spending continues to exceed what you're even, not that we're doing any cutting, but, it would be difficult for sure. We got one final talking point, and this is the one I made some people mad because I said, I'd take it. And that's Walker's payout plan of the PFD. The $10,000 per. I mean, Brad, I just want to get mine before they spend it all. They're going to spend it all anyway. We're going to lose the whole thing. I might as well get, between my household, I might as well get, $30,000-$40,000 and put it in the bank and do something with it rather than what these jokers are going to do with it, because it's going to be gone anyway. But we're talking about Walker's PFD proposal. Hit me with it.
Yeah, well, maybe so. So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna be consistent today.
All right.
I'm gonna start this segment with the same as the other two segments. We're facing a $1.9 billion annual deficit in the state of Alaska. If we eliminate the PFD, where's the deficit goes down a lot. In fact, it probably turns into a surplus, but over time. But whose backs have we put that $1.9 billion on the back of? We put it on the back of middle and lower income Alaska family. Who's leaving the state? We talk about out-migration a lot. Who's leaving the state? Well, turns out it's middle and lower income working age Alaska families. Walker's proposal, it is bad at a number of levels. I mean, it's bad in terms of what it does to future generations. It's bad in terms of what it does to the current generation, in terms of completely shifting the burden to middle and lower income Alaska families. It's just bad across the board. It is the equivalent. I've tried to, since we're on the Texas and Louisiana kick also, I've tried to think through how to put this in a way that really, sort of gets people to focus on what the PFD is and what Walker's proposal does. The PFD is Alaska's equivalent of royalty payments. We all own the resource in common in Alaska, and so we all get a piece of the revenue from the resource in terms of the PFD. In the same way that owners of resource in the producing states, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, get a share of the revenue through royalties. When they own the resource, when they own the mineral rights, the oil and gas mineral rights, and those are developed, they get a share of the revenues through royalty payments. The way we do it up here is, since we have full ownership, or since we have a common ownership throughout the state, we share it through the PFD. What Walker's proposal to terminate the PFD is essentially the same thing if in Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma, you went to the royalty owners and said, the state's going to take over the resource. The state's going to get all of the revenue from the resource. You can talk about it in terms of taxation. You can talk about it in terms of confiscation. You can talk about it in terms of nationalization. You can talk about it different ways, but it's the same thing as if in those states, the state comes in and says, we're going to take over the resource. We're going to pay you for it, but we're going to pay you pennies on the dollar in terms of the potential revenue source, in terms of the revenue source going forward that you otherwise would get from royalty. We're going to take it over, and the state's going to own it now, and all those revenues are going to go to the state. And so there is no private ownership anymore in those states. It's the equivalent of saying in those states, there is no private ownership anymore of the mineral resource. The state now gets the entire benefit of it, the entire revenue stream that would otherwise go to the landowners, or otherwise go to the mineral interest owners or the royalty owners. It's the same thing. And what Walker is doing up here is saying, we're going to pay you pennies on the dollar of what you're owed. Now, Michael raises the question about whether we'd ever get what we're owed, but we're going to pay you pennies on the dollar of what you're owed, or in terms of Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma terms, pennies on the dollars of what your royalty interest is worth, and confiscate it to the state. So we're not only affecting current royalty owners, Alaska royalty owners, current Alaska owners, we're affecting future generations as well by just confiscating it to the state. I didn't think Walker could get any worse from 2016, from what he did in 2016. I didn't think he could come up, and Hoffbeck could come up with a worse idea than they had in 2016. But by gosh, he managed to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm just, it is, let me be very clear. It is state confiscation of the royalty interest that's created by statute, that is supposed to go to the common owners of the resource in the state of Alaska.
And my argument is, and I agree with what you're saying, I want to say that up front, but my argument is they're already doing it. They're already confiscating. They already 83% is what they took of the earnings this last go around. We ended up with what, 17%. I mean, and next year it'll be 15, and the year after that it'll be 10, and then it'll be 5, and then there won't be anything, and they'll have confiscated it all anyway. I'm thinking, boy, I should probably take mine while I can. That's what my point was, because I could see that this is where this is going. They're going to confiscate it, and it'll all be gone.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that really don't throw in the towel. I'm one of those people that just keeps on fighting. Maybe to the bitter end, and maybe till I'm bloodied and dismissed and all that sort of stuff.
I'm with you. I just as a thought exercise, I was like, ooh, man, it'd be the only time you're going to get out of this what any part of what you were really owed.
Yeah, and again, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma. Again, I can see my clients that I had in the early stages of my career down in Oklahoma. I can see them saying, we'll give you, and in some instances, the oil companies did this. The oil companies would say, we'll give you $500,000 for your mineral interest. We'll buy your mineral interest from you. Instead of doing royalty share, we'll do $500,000. And so I recall in the early stages of my career running spreadsheets that said, okay, well, if the oil does this and oil prices do that, and the revenue stream is this, your net present value from the future revenue stream from this property, you and future generations, is, multiple millions of dollars. And they want to pay you $500,000 for it. You can do that. I mean, yes, you can sell your mineral rights. Absolutely, you can do that. But in terms of the economics, you're really shortchanging yourself and your heirs and
right.
and others that would own the land. You can do that.
So it's the lottery,
and some of the clients did that. Some of the clients sold their mineral interests.
Yeah, it's the lottery payout. You could take this smaller lump sum, or you could take it out over the course of years. And which one do you want? So it just questions whether or not there's going to be anything left in 5 years for the PFD to be paid out. That's going to be the question. All right, we're running out of time. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Final thoughts quickly, Brad, here on anything else.
Subchapter S, give it a fair chance. Let's see what the arguments are in front of the conference committee.
See, I would have given money that you would have said $1.9 billion.
I should have.
$1.9 billion underwater at the beginning of every year here. All right, Brad. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the
No, you don't.
I
mean, the number of likes probably went from 6 down to 0 or negative.
No, it's good. I mean, it's good stuff. We have to face. This is the problem with truth. Truth is painful sometimes, and we have to acknowledge that. And it's not what we want to hear. You're not a politician. You're not telling us what we want to hear. So it's good, thought-provoking stuff. So I like it, even if I disagree sometimes. I disagree under protest more than anything else. I'm just like, that's not the way I want it to be, so that's there. You see,
there you go.
Feelings over fact. That's what it was all about. All right, Brad. Well, thank you so much for coming on board today. It's good to talk with you. Thank you, my friend.
Michael, thanks for having me as always.
Well, that's a wrap for another week's edition of the weekly top 3 from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you again for joining us. Remember that you can find past episodes on our YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Substack pages, and keep track of us during the week on Facebook and Twitter. This has been Brad Keithley, Managing Director of Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We look forward to you joining us again next week for the next edition of the Weekly Top 3.